Hey everyone, this is Brennan Decima, owner of Decima Wealth Consulting. Thanks for joining Spending Time with the Decimas. I am here with my beautiful wife, Erin. And last week we had our first podcast discussing the 2024 Couples and Money study and just how difficult it was for partners and spouses to communicate about money. And that has led us over the last week to really spend more time talking about money. So this week we want to talk a little bit about what it's like to lose someone and the impact that is on the non-financial decision maker. So Erin, I'm curious, this was your idea. Where did you come up with this topic?
So, this topic came to me out of a practical joke that I was going to play on you. However, instead of playing it on you, I decided we would do a podcast on it. My girlfriends and I like to play practical jokes on our husband, and the one that was sent to me was to go to your husband with a deadpan look on your face and tell them that you are not going to be able to help with the mortgage that month. And this joke is funny if you, of course, don't help with the mortgage. I do not have any role in our finances in our house, so the reaction on Brennan's face probably would have been pretty funny. But instead, it kind of just spurred me having this conversation of maybe this is something that we could talk about.
One, I'm glad you didn't play practical jokes because I hate practical jokes. I think you know that. But two, I think it's a really good topic because in general, there's someone that typically takes the lead for certain items. So, I'm a financial advisor. I take the lead in our house on finances. And, unfortunately, what that looks like in our house and a lot of houses is we just don't share a lot about what we're doing. We own the responsibility, we do it, which is fine until it's not, leaving the other person in the dark. And it's not just finances, you are incredibly handy. So, I don't know what any of the tools in the toolbox are, right? So there's things that if you weren't here, the house would absolutely crumble. And I think the focus is how do we at least make sure, financial or not, the other person is prepared when that decision maker, you know, isn't here. So, Aaron, I'm curious, what would you say your biggest concern is financially if I wasn't here to take care of things?
Realistically, it'd probably be our children's future. I think them going to college and being able to assist them going to college or making sure that they are able to get through school and able, right now they're still very little. So just being able to make sure that I'm able to keep our quality of life or even some notion of quality of life and able to care for them and all the way through, that would be my biggest thing that I would have to think of.
What do you think would give you the confidence that your quality of life could continue?
Ooh. I don't honestly know. I know that we have I know we're going to talk about this because this is kind of what I wanted to talk about in this, like our contingency plan and all of the things that go along with it. So I know that you have set things up specifically to allow, our family to have certain things in our life. And, I know where everything is. However, as far as knowing where and when to pay for certain things or do certain things, I think that probably I'm still a little bit in the dark of. And maybe those are some things that we could go over. Am I supposed to pay this off? Am I supposed to just continue as normal on this? Because obviously things change when not only the person who handles all the finance, but the person who is the income, earner is no longer around. So like those are maybe some things that we would have to, discuss, unless those are things kind of outdated or updated more in the contingency plan that I just haven't looked over as well as I should have when I reviewed it. Yeah, so I guess that would be kind of the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah, so I heard a couple things there. Making sure the kids are able to get an education. So that incredibly important, right? Making sure the bills are paid, understanding what bills we even need to pay. So uh, I think that's a really good starting point for any couple is, do both spouses know what the bills even are? So having that in a folder of, here's our fixed expenses. So where are they going? Having in the folder how they're actually getting paid. Are they being paid from a particular credit card? Does the spouse have access to that credit card? Does she have the password to that credit card account? So really cataloging what are the sources of cash flow, category cataloging all of the bills and expenses, and then writing out instructions of, here's when and how they get paid. I think goes a really long way to avoid guesswork, or to avoid the helpful but unhelpful group of friends, neighbors that are offering every bit of advice under the sun. So from a education standpoint, um, I think there's a number of things that we've tried to do there. Uh, you know, First is life insurance, right? So if something happens to me, how do we replace my income while I'm no longer here? And there's a provision in there to fund education for that as well. So, understanding the life insurance, where it's held, who to call, that's something that you want to have in that file as well.
I guess partly for me, but also partly for listeners, I guess a question that I'm going to ask you for everybody's sake are, what are some of the things that should be done before someone passes away? What are all of the ducks you need to get in a row before someone actually passes away? All these checklists.
Yeah, so we have a great checklist on our website. So if anyone is interested in the checklist, decimawealth.com has a great what to do if you lose a loved one checklist. But I think in advance and preparing, step one is always making sure you have your assets, liabilities, expenses all in one folder. So what do you own? What do you owe? Making sure you have your estate planning documents updated. So if you have kids, the will is going to spell out who takes control of the kids if you're no longer here. You want to have a power of attorney if, it's not death, but it's a heart attack or a stroke or memory loss, a major, cognitive issue, right? So the power of attorney allows you to act. Having medical instructions, having all of that in the same folder, and then having the passwords in an easily accessible place. I think all of that are steps to take well in advance. And those steps should really be taken it's never too early to do that, right? So I feel like we waited way too late to do that, right? And, that's the one thing I haven't practiced what I preach, but fortunately it's something we have done now, and, better late than never, I guess.
So I guess, like an aside for this, we only really did this, practice what you preach. We did not. We had our contingency plan, all of the information written out for us, really only a few years ago. So our son is 5.5, almost 6, I guess. And it was a couple years ago when Brennan went and did a very dangerous climb over in Nepal. So what was it about, I guess, other than the dangerous part, but what was it about that climb that really kind of sparked it for you? Why was that the moment you were like, I should probably do this for my wife and family?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about climbing in Nepal is everyone sends you an interesting movie, documentary, book on Everest. And if anyone has ever read or watched anything on Everest, spoiler alert, it's all about a bunch of people dying, right? So they're not really motivating videos. They are interesting to watch if you're not going over there. But uh, that really was the catalyst of, hey, something absolutely could happen, right? And we do not have anything in place formally. So Aaron, you would be starting from scratch, right? So that was really my focal point of, in the event something does happen on the mountain, um, you're going to be in good shape. And it was kind of crazy. Nothing to do with climbing, but day one, flying from the city to the Himalayas, Kathmandu to Lukla, our helicopter lost connection to dispatch, lost visibility. We're having these massive drops in the air. We end up landing in what was pretty much some guy's backyard on the side of a cliff. But I remember texting you, like thinking that was the end. And then, even weirder, about a week later, we saw that same helicopter and it had crashed and the tail's up in the air. We can read the call ticker and, it was the same helicopter we had just been in a week earlier, and everyone in there had lost their life. So I think for me, that was just that, like, man, if I'm going to be doing stuff, I can't just leave my family. It's already a really tough time to lose someone, but then to have a scavenger hunt and where do I even start to pick up the pieces is just terrible, right? So that was really my focal point before the trip.
So that's kind of everything that you did beforehand, and then we're talking about us. So we are I like to consider, relatively young family with young children, but who should do this? Because it's not just couples. It's anybody. You work with not just couples. You work with all types of people, married, not. Who would you say should do this?
Well, I think you just answered that question. So great job.
But like in more detail, what would be the other than someone passing away?
I don't think it matters if you're married or if you're single. If you have people that you care about that are going to be handling your affairs, you should consider putting a written plan in place to make sure that you spell that out. So that is a living, breathing document, right? So anytime there's a major life event, new job, wedding, kids, grandkids, change of location, retirement, right? That's a reminder to go back and review beneficiaries, life insurance, your estate documents, and just make sure everything is still up to date and relevant. So I think, you said that maybe you haven't read the contingency plan as closely as you should, right? And I think that's normal, right? No one wants to read if I'm gone, here's what to do. So I think having the conversation is just as good as studying a contingency plan years and years in advance, hopefully. But I'm curious, what do you think, immediately, like, what is step one? What would you do, or what do you think you should do if I were to pass away? Where would you start?
Gosh. Oh, I honestly don't even want to think about it, to be honest with you.
So that's a normal answer. I mean, most people don't think about it. I think that's where the problem lies. No one wants to think about this.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, truthfully, I would search for the contingency plan because I know we have it. I think very specifically because not only do you have it listed in their things to do or places to look for certain things, not even just financial, but you've even gone so far as to write specific people to call, trusted people that will help me with specific things. And I think that is very helpful because in moments, like I've had people very close to me pass away, and in moments you kind of are immediately after almost overwhelmed with the amount of people who are very well-meaningly helpful, and then you don't really know like how to accept or who to reach out to afterwards. So you specifically writing out, call this person for this specific, question. Call this person because they will help you do this. I think that is even not even financial. I know some of them are call this person because they will help you help with these financial questions, but sort of the details that you put in that, I think would be very valuable. And so that would probably be the first thing I did, is truly call those people and say, I'm calling you because Brennan told me to. And I feel like they would even more so be like, yes, I am helping you because Brennan loves me and I have to.
I mean, I'm glad you'll actually read it, but I think you kind of articulated the challenge with a time that is just so emotional and so overwhelming is a lot of people come in out of the woodwork, right, to offer comfort and to try and make you feel better. And oftentimes they're giving advice. And I think the challenge is you just get so much noise coming in that it's really, really easy to have someone that makes you feel good also sound like the words of wisdom, whether they know what they're talking about or not. So a lot of bad decisions get made. So I really think from a financial standpoint, there's some tasks to take right away. Freeze the credit, call the insurance company, call the financial institutions. But as far as actually making changes, selling anything or paying off debt, in my opinion, really the first 6 months should be spent on just emotionally getting to a better place before you do any potentially life altering decisions. So the checklist we have is, hey, here's the must do's, but as far as any major rearranging, that should wait. I mean, really until you're in a better headspace to, you know, filter out the noise, I guess.
Do you have any must don'ts or things that you've seen happen with clients in the past, of things that have happened, where they made quick decisions, or people have kind of come in with good, bad advice, and certain situations have happened?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the mistakes I've seen clients made, I mean, there's a handful. Some of them are major financial mistakes, but other are just more sentimental. I mean, I vividly recall a client losing her husband, and his truck still had a car loan on it, and she was so concerned about paying the car loan that she sold the truck. And then her grandson was turning 16, and for years she still talks about how much she regrets selling that truck when she could have just given it to her grandson and, had that memory, right? So that first gut reaction of, hey, I need to get as financially prudent as possible, in hindsight might not have been, drastic measures might not have been taken. I think the other thing that I really see regularly is from a tax standpoint, not every company automatically updates the cost basis. So I see sales being made, cost basis not being updated. And I know that's a little bit complex, but basically, um, sometimes a sale will occur right away to pay all of these bills or to pay down debt, but proper record keeping wasn't done, and a tax is created that could have been avoided with some patience and some updating. And they don't know that. They just get a tax bill, and all of a sudden the IRS gets money that could have been avoided if there was a little bit of patience. So those are really the two big ones: making a sale that sentimentally you regret, um, or selling a house, changing location. I mean, that's something that people tend to look back and say, man, I wish I would have waited on that. And then making a big sale that creates a tax burden that could have been avoided, just by not being a little bit more patient.
Okay. And then I do have one final question, because obviously we're having this conversation now, and even some of the questions you've asked me are making me feel uncomfortable. If somebody's bringing up this conversation, they're listening to this podcast and they're bringing up this conversation to their partner, and it's becoming an awkward conversation. I don't want to have this conversation. What are some ways, I guess, that you could suggest to people or start to breach the topic? Reaching out to you or going on the checklist? What are some ideas that you might have for people?
Yeah, so, as we talked about last week, I think money is incredibly personal and it can bring up a really emotional response in a lot of people. So it's not abnormal that people shut down this conversation because money has that effect. Thinking about our mortality also has that effect too, right? So that's common. People don't want to have the conversation. I think a couple things. So, one, um, maybe not trying to jump right in with a we need to do everything all at once today and knock out all of the estate documents, all of the cataloging, but really just chipping away. If you're paying all the bills, when you pay the bills, let your partner or spouse know what you paid and how you paid it, right? So little things. When you file the taxes, introduce them to the CPA or show them the TurboTax before you do it. Invite them to financial planning meetings. So the more familiarity they have, the better off you're going to be. And then hopefully you can chip away at that contingency plan. But just coming at it with a sense of curiosity. What are their concerns? What is their plan if something happens? And then how do you meet in a place where everyone feels comfortable if you're no longer here? So, yeah, it's not a fun conversation to have, but the longer you avoid it, the bigger the potential mess can be.